Hi.
Hey, I just wanted to make sure that everything was up and running for you.
Yeah. Am I a co-host?
Yeah, you should be.
Okay. And can you check
Yep.
that screen sharing is in?
Yes. Yep. Looks like it. You're the host actually.
Okay.
So you should be all set.
All right, cool. So they should be able to share their screen too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And if they can't, you can just go in and make them a co-host since you're the host. So you can just hover over their name, press more, and then select make co-host or something. But they should be able to do no matter what.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. Where are you?
I live in Sausalito. So this is a park in Sausalito, which
Nice.
when I don't have any meetings throughout the rest of the day and the weather's nice, I like to come here and do work instead because that's just so much more enjoyable than being anywhere else.
That's really nice. It's been really gray all day in the sunset.
That's one thing about the sunset that kind of is annoying because you're by the beach, but the weather's terrible.
Totally. Yeah.
But
Okay,
I remember. Oh, sorry. No. Yeah, I hope you have a great event. And obviously, just ping me or anything. Email me if you have any issues. I'm available.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Have fun.
All right. Okay. See ya.
Bye.
Hi.
There we go. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good.
All right.
Let me make you a co-host for.
Fabulous.
Yeah, let's see.
I'm going to screw around with my audio because for some reason I'm only in one ear. And,
Okay. Yeah, I don't see
and then
where.
Ace.
Let me. That's so weird. I guess because they have it set up on like a panel format. It's only showing me as a panelist, and I have to give you permission to speak. So let me just.
Yeah, you could choose not to. I would totally understand. I'd be totally okay with that.
That would be really awkward.
Let's see if I can get you in both ears. Let's see. There we go. But can I turn my camera on? I don't have the ability to turn my camera on.
Okay, we need to change the settings on this. Hold on one second.
This is why we get on a little bit early to do all this. It's amazing.
She was just on, and she's like, "Is everything good?" Okay, looks like I can promote you to panelist. Let's see if that works. Can you turn your camera on now? Hello?
Oh, so I've got the button now to turn it on, but it says your host has stopped it. So you have to unstop it, whatever that means.
Okay. Leilani, is that you?
Yes, I am here.
Hey, so I think there's too many restrictions on this setup. Like I have to give people permission to talk and turn on their videos, and looks like Kenton, even though I made him a co-host,
There
there you
we
go.
are. Oh, shit. I'm totally out of focus. That's my problem. I'll solve that problem. Yeah,
So is there a way, Leilani, that we can just be the attendees?
Yes. Well, since this is a webinar, usually the attendees stay kind of in that attendee panel list, but let me go into the settings right now and see if I can change them to be able to turn on their video.
Okay. And I am making Lilian a co-host as well.
There we go. And Lilian will be sharing her screen, I believe, as well.
I do have
Oh.
the button seems to let me share my screen.
Great.
Amazing.
Yeah, I know there's like 4 other folks already joined, and I think it would be nice to see people's faces, if possible.
100%. Yep. And for them to be able to interrupt at will, I think is also desirable from our side.
Agreed. Okay.
I still only have sound in one ear, but again, that's my problem and I'll deal with it.
And Kenton, I just put you on mute because you had some background noise, but you can unmute yourself.
Cool. Yeah, that background noise is going to be persistent, so I'll try and keep myself muted because it's hard. It's easier to do that than to mute the little one that's making the noise.
Yeah, you can't mute him. All right, cool. So maybe we'll just give it one more minute to try to switch this over so that we can see people. All right, there we go. Awesome. Thank you, Leilani.
No problem.
Cool. So welcome everyone. I guess with your increased permissions, I'll just encourage you to come on video if you're comfortable. I think we wanted this to be more of a conversation, and it'd be nice to see some faces. And then just reminder to keep yourself on mute unless you want to jump in with a question, and that is welcome. So we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks for joining today. So we've got Kenton Harmer here, Managing Director of the Equitable Food Initiative, and Lilian Autler, is that how you
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Senior
And I'm
Workforce
also a C5 graduate from
Yeah,
this institution, so I'm an alumni.
yeah, very important note. So I'll just do a quick intro or just a couple sentences for both of you, if that's okay, and then I'll let you guys take it away. So the Equitable Food Initiative aims to bring together growers, farm workers, retailers, and consumers to transform agriculture and improve the lives of farm workers. So today's discussion is going to be about EFI's theory of change and how they're scaling impact on the farm and beyond. And so a little bit about Kenton. So managing director and PGS C5 alum. He directs the multi-stakeholder process responsible for the ecosystem of standards, policies, and relationships that make up the EFI certification program. I think I'll just leave it there. And then, oh, for some reason I'm missing your bio, Lilian, but I'll let you introduce yourself. And I know that you're going to kick us off with a little participatory exercise. So take it away.
And just before you start, Lilian, I think people are having trouble getting on video. It'd be fabulous for those that wish to be on video, so we could,
because we're hoping to make this more, as interactive as possible and more of a conversation than a presentation. So, yeah, if that's possible, that would be awesome.
Okay, we're working on getting people on video now.
Okay.
Well, in the meantime, I'll just say hello to everyone. I am Lilian Autler. I'm joining you from across the bay in Oakland. I don't know if you all are actually in San Francisco or not, but no.
Not all of us.
No. And I am part of the training and workforce development team at Equitable Food Initiative. So we work with growers, farm workers, and all of the different stakeholders that are part of EFI to facilitate learning and communication and certification.
Awesome, thank you. Do you want to wait a moment to see if we can get video before we do the exercise?
What do you think? Yes.
Yeah, why don't you do that, and maybe I'll just do a preamble of. I'm just really excited that we're doing this tonight, and just really, really grateful for all the organization that went into this and folks for showing up and stuff. And sort of part of the passion I have around this is being a C5 graduate, talking about systems change, when I was in school, but never at a level and at a depth where I really truly understood what it took to really take that on. What were the methods? What are the challenges? What are the compromises that it takes to really try and change a system? And for us, it's really the fresh produce industry and agricultural workforces and workplaces. So I just want to make sure that we go into this saying it would be really beneficial for Lilian and I. We're really proud as EFI of our impact we've had, and we'll get a chance, I think, a little bit later to sort of talk about what that impact is. But it has come with challenges, and it has come with compromises, and we are certainly willing to just be very transparent about all of that and be challenged on things and really kind of dive in with the idea that some of the stuff that we're doing right may be sort of helpful as y'all sort of launch out of Presidio. But I think some of the stuff that we've done wrong may be equally or more helpful as well. And we just want to be really open to having those conversations with y'all.
Love it. Thank you. So it looks like we're just gonna, if you get a notification, please select join as a panelist. That way, that is the only way we're finding to have you turn on your video. So we're all panelists now. See, we're flattening the hierarchy.
Right.
It's the way it should be.
Right.
It's kind of what Lillian's going to talk about in terms of agricultural workplaces too.
Perfect.
So, I mean, if we want to get going in the meantime, you know, we can, if people can at least unmute themselves, because I'm going to share my screen and ask you all to participate. Still not getting video, huh? All right. Well, okay. I will start. And so part of, I don't know how much folks know about the Equitable Food Initiative. We will be talking more about that, but to get us started, so I'm part of the training workforce development team. And one of the main things that we do is that we go on to agricultural operations, whether they be farms or greenhouses or packing houses, and we train teams of, yay, there's some faces. We train teams of employees. Hi, everybody. Great, thank you.
This is, by the way, how every single one of our trainings tends to start. So this is like, we're in our comfort zone here.
We train teams of employees that include frontline farm workers, supervisors, managers, technicians, administrative employees. So we train groups of people about the EFI program and our standards and communication and teamwork and problem solving. But one of the first things that we do in order to get them kind of to set the framework, to set the context, is we talk about the industry, the produce industry, and how EFI was created by different actors and stakeholders in the produce industry. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So here we have a very simplified version of the fresh produce supply chain, right? Which so say you have you're looking at an apple here, right? Here's an apple, and where does this apple where does it end up? Where does this apple end up? And go ahead and unmute yourselves, because we'd love to have you all on the mic and talking at the same time. Where does
And Lillian, clarifying question, end up as it, like, be a farm worker and answer that question?
Be a person in, yeah, anybody. Where would you say that this apple ends up?
I was going to say in the child's mouth was my first thought.
There you go, right? In the child's mouth, or eventually in the child's belly, right? So this apple ends up with the consumer, right? Whoever is going to, purchases and eats the apple. And where does that consumer get the apple?
Usually the store, unless they go to a farmer's market.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the consumer gets their produce from a store, right? A supermarket, or what we call sometimes a retailer in the industry. There's a picture of Costco because EFI has worked closely with Costco from the beginning. And where does Costco get the apple? Shout it out.
The wholesaler or producer.
Exactly, right? From a distributor, a wholesaler, or a producer, right? Someone who grows apples, grows and distributes apples. And where does the grower or producer get the apples?
Farms.
Supplier being the farm.
Right. And how does that happen? Where, how are the apples produced? Who produces the apples?
Farm workers.
Right. So there's farm workers help, grow and harvest and pack the apple or tomato or whatever it is, right? So so normally, we would go and we would divide you into groups and have you do some work together in groups, but we won't take the time to do that today. But let's just think together for a moment about each of these actors in our produce supply chain has needs and interests, right? Things that that they need for their well-being, right, or prosperity. So what are some of the things that workers need, that a worker needs for his or her well-being?
Living wage.
Okay, let me trying to get this. I'm trying to set it up so I can actually write here. Okay, a living wage. Why is it turning out green? I do not know. Okay, what else?
Housing.
Access to clean water.
Let me just.
Health insurance.
I'm remembering all these, Lilian, so you can get caught up. So we've got housing, health insurance, and clean water. Cool.
Great. What else?
PPE.
Personal protective equipment. Great.
Childcare.
I would say labor union based on how a lot of these organizations are structured.
Also some form of transportation to actually get to work or get to the hospital, wherever they need to go.
Great. Okay. Any other things you want to mention?
Food.
I want to add some, Lilian, from
Yes.
the EFI perspective. We would also include on that list things like a safe work environment, agency, and participation in how the farm identifies and solves problems.
And many people also mention training. All right. Well, so that's a great list. And now let's think for a minute about the grower, the producer who employs, the farm workers, who produces the fruit or the vegetable. What is important? What does the grower need in order to do well? What does the grower need or want?
To land.
Say that again. Land.
Correct. And seed.
And say that again.
Seeds.
One more time.
So seed, I think, right?
Seeds.
Oh, seeds. Okay.
Water.
Like a steady, like sales outlet.
So buyers, right? Places to sell, buyers for their produce. Customers.
Healthy soil and appropriate climate.
What else?
I would say labor.
That's a big one, right? What, anything more, would you like to say anything more specific about labor?
Probably a certain level of seasonality. So there's a flux of how many you need depending on the time of year.
And Lilian, just thinking about sort of time and trucking along, I'm going to again interject.
Yeah.
And this is intentionally provocative to sort of try and set up, the kind of like frank discussion that we can have here is they need a profit margin. Without a profit margin, none of this other stuff matters.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should just sort of keep.
Let's
keep
keep going.
pace.
Okay. Let's keep going. We'll just take we'll take just a few examples. All right. So, looking at the supermarket, what is a supermarket? What is the buyer, the store that buys the produce? What are they interested in? What are they looking for?
Quality, consistency.
Oh my gosh.
Pricing.
What else? Say that again.
Pricing.
They want to pay, right? They want to pay a reasonable price. So
Actually, they want to pay an unreasonable price.
an unreasonable price. Yes. A low price. They want a low price. Yes. Great.
Food safety.
Right. Okay. So anything important key that we're missing there? Quality, low price, food safety, and consumers. What do consumers care about? What are they looking for? What do they need?
Probably the
everything.
same three.
Yeah.
Say that again.
The same three as the retailer.
They want quality produce. They want low prices. They want food safety, so they don't get sick, or right. They don't want contaminated food. Great. And do you think that the consumers and the retailers are thinking about? Are they thinking about workers? Are they thinking about the workers having a living wage, housing, clean water, health insurance, PPE, et cetera?
Very few.
Do you all think about that as consumers? Sometimes.
More and more.
Right. And do you think that the workers are thinking about food safety? Do you think the workers care about food safety and whether the food is contaminated or not? Maybe. Do you think the producer is thinking about that? And why might workers care about food safety?
Well, obviously health reasons.
Their own health, right? And what happens? What happens if contaminated food ends up in the supermarket and a consumer eats it? What happens?
Then there's a recall.
Right? There can be a recall, there can be big lawsuits. And what happens if there's a big lawsuit?
Well, there's an impact right down the supply chain line.
Exactly. So that's our conversation. That's the conversation in a nutshell that we have with these teams of people that include farm workers. And the point of that conversation is to, really identify what are some of the common interests among all of these supply chain actors, what happens at this end of the supply chain impacts, as you said, all the way down the line, and vice versa, right? Like if you have workers that are not taken care of well, how that can impact all the way up the supply chain. And it also generally helps people who are mostly focused on their day-to-day jobs, right? To have kind of a sense of how they fit into the bigger picture, how they fit into the bigger industry, and how what they do impacts everyone else in the supply chain. And that's how we start, you know, start out introducing the organization, Equitable Food Initiative, but also all of the, you know, our conversations about the industry.
And Lilian, this it's a great segue into just like bringing it up to systems change methodology kind of level. But before we do that, maybe can you give them a couple of minutes on who are we training, who are we doing these type of activities with, and what for?
Okay. So I'll just show you a few photos of some trainings, from trainings that we've done on farms. Here we have examples of leadership, people on leadership teams who are learning, who are talking to each other, who are studying the EFI standards. So the purpose of these trainings that we do is to build a team on each company, each grower, each that wants to become certified has to create a worker manager team that is that understands the program, the certification program, that has a sense of what the standards are that the company needs to comply with, and is able to communicate to the rest of the workforce about those standards, and look for opportunity for either problems or opportunities for improvement. The idea is that they can engage the entire workforce in helping the company to comply with the standards and to continuously improve the situation on that farm. And so in order for that to work well, there has to be a certain level of collaboration and trust, not just, you know, especially among the people who are on this team, but ideally among everyone in all areas of the farm, so that anybody who notices a problem or has a suggestion about how something could be done better feels comfortable speaking up, you know, either to their supervisor or to somebody on the leadership team and saying, hey, you know, the bathrooms are really dirty, you know, we're out of compliance, or, you know, some of the supervisors are treating, you know, workers really crappy, or the water that we're using is contaminated, or, you know, anything that might affect either the working environment or food safety or, you know, the quality of the product.
And this is all in service of, you know, a phrase that's bandied around too much, and you know, you should challenge us and when we use it. But this is all in the service of systems change, right? But there's concentric circles of systems in this ecosystem. The first one we're doing is on the farm. We're treating the farm as an entire system, and that's why these leadership teams that we bring together look a lot like the workforce. So it's got all job classes represented, including management, right? So Christopher, you talked about unionization. This is a different model than a collective bargaining agreement, and there's interesting history there where we're actually, our first board chair came from the United Farm Workers, so we're very much supported by the major farm worker unions, but we're a completely different model. So we create this farm, we set up the farm to be a system, and a system that has this really interesting body of workers and management that come together, and the workers represent the different job classes. They represent, we got gender representation, we got regional representation, we have you know, guest workers versus domestically recruited. Like, we really try and get a microcosm of the workforce, And then what Lilian's team does is then give them these skills in communication and conflict resolution and data gathering and problem solving, so that for the first time in many of these cases, I want to say all cases because I can't think of an anomaly, but I'll hedge and say many of these cases, it's the first time that workers and management are collaborating on problem identification and solution, right? And this is just like mind-blowing. This is not mind-blowing for any other industry, I think, except agriculture, and particularly agriculture in the Americas. But by giving folks the incentive, the agency, and the skills to be able to talk to each other in a really effective way and to solve problems, we're seeing like problems that have been endemic for decades on some of these farms getting solved really, really quickly. Like after one meeting, because we have workers redesigning work processes to improve food safety. And they could have done this 15 years ago, but they were never asked. And if they were asked, and they weren't, but if they were, they didn't have the voice, the skills, the confidence, the safety to be able to provide their expertise. So really fascinating sort of culture shift that happens once Lilian's team has worked with these folks. And it's a really intensive, and it's a really expensive, and it's a really heavy touch intervention. But it gets these amazing results, right? And this is, I'm purposely setting up of saying there are some externalities around that aren't great, that are you know, and we should talk about that. But then we go, the next concentric circle out is EFI trying to look at the system that you saw on Lilian's slide and say, of all those things that you added to each of those 4 columns, our job is that we've got to be able to meet all of those interests with all of our major strategic and operational decisions. So we're looking at this thing, we're looking at parties, and take the consumers out for this. Let's just really concentrate on the value chain, that is workers, their employers, and then the major buyers, right? They've been at war in this country for what, 55 years and stuff, like literally violent war in some cases, like a really terrible history. And the playbooks are entrenched, and the playbooks are they're well funded, and they're very well known. And the playbooks got us to where we're going, where, you know, workers are fighting their employers for just cause. The employers are fighting their workers, but the employers are also fighting their buyers, and the buyers are squeezing them. So even the folks that want to do right as the growers, they can't, because they cannot stay in business to do the right that they want to do. So it's a great definition of a market failure. And so where EFI was developed is to say, we have to first develop and then live in that very narrow lane where the interests of workers, growers, and buyers all align. And so that's the Venn, and that where it meets is never really been explored, because I don't think anybody was convinced that it actually existed before. And so we need to go to our board and our stakeholders and our farm worker folks and our buyer folks and our retailers, and be able to justify all of our decisions as to saying, why does this strategic initiative give a return to workers and growers and buyers all at the same time? So it's just really a complex thing. And I guess where I'm going with this is, when I was in Presidio, man, we just never grappled with that. We never really grappled with the complexity. What does it mean to do systems change? We talked a lot about sort of more the old school playbook of name and shame, right? There's I went to class when Hunter Lovins was there and stuff, and this is a direct quote, and Hunter Lovins was like, there's a whole bunch of pig fuckers out there, and your job is to identify them and to shame them into turning into changing their ways. And that's a very different approach than EFI is taking, where everybody gets in the room, everybody's got to have skin in the game, and in return we have to give everybody something back for their investment in this. And it's a super messy and super crazy process. In the 8 years since we've been auditing, we've got two new folks that got certified today. So we have 53 certified operations in 5 farms that employ in total about 60,000 farm workers. So we're looking at our impacts at this point as being, there's 60,000 folks that are in workplaces that have more dignity, that are more professional, that are safer, right? Farm workers. And for the buyers, we can say they're more productive, their tenure lasts longer, and there's more profit margin available because of they're not fighting their workforce, they're actually benefiting from their workforce. And for the buyers, we're able to say there's 60,000 folks that are acting as your food safety eyes on the ground, that are making sure that you're de-risking as much as possible for things like forced labor and recruitment fees and all of the social conditions. So it's a hairy ride, and it's super squirrely, and we're getting a bunch of things right, but there's real challenges along the way, and we've got a whole bunch of things wrong, and then we have to own sort of all of our externalities. And I just sort of, and Corinne, you take over where you want to go, but I just want to really make sure the door is wide open, that, you know, we love this model and we think it's really effective, and we think we're able to do things that other folks haven't in terms of this. But I'll tell you what, we're really, really crappy for small farmers. Our model works for large employers, and it does not work for small farms. So we're giving a market advantage to big monocroppers, right? So we balance all this impact that we feel like we're having on one side of like increasing wages and increasing safety and increasing gender representation in management and all these other things by, yeah, but we're like also being part of a system that is continuing to show preference to large employers versus small farms. So that's sort of my thing of saying, man, this stuff is really interesting and really fascinating, but really hard, and there's no purity and righteousness in it.
So just a point of clarification on that. So is the reason why you're favoring larger growers is just by nature of how expensive and intensive the program is?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that's right. It's $15,000 to have Lilian's team minimum to come and train, right? And then you're going to get a 6-person day audit, like just this incredibly rigorous audit, and that audit's going to tell you that you've got to have very advanced management systems, particularly in terms of workforce. So your payroll system better be fully transparent and fully understood by everybody on there. You have to have contracts for everybody, you know, and all of these things add cost. You know, and the folks that can cross that bar are the folks that have the money to be able to do it, because we do have a premium program where there's money flowing from the retailers right back to the farm workers. But the money that's flowing from the retailers to the growers isn't enough to cover the costs that they have to take on. So that takes our model and really limits it to not only large employers, but large employers that understand that whole cost accounting says this, like really leveraging the knowledge of their workforce is actually going to give them productivity increases. It's going to give them safety increases, like there's all kinds of stuff, but that's not everybody. And so none of that really fits somebody who's running, you know, inherited their family farm over a couple of generations and have 15 people that come and join them seasonally to harvest their product.
Super interesting to think through the challenges of how to influence the larger farms and have a kind of bigger impact there, but then also what about the smaller family farms and what are the adverse effects on them? I wonder if have you thought at all or tried to partner with any organizations that are more suited towards the smaller farmers? Like, is there an opportunity for collaboration in your industry?
I think the model forward, and we actually may have sort of serious progress on this within the next couple of weeks, is we've got a cost problem, right? So we want to have impact. We want the impact to be real. We don't want some bullshit audit where you check the box and you say you're good and you're whatever certified. We actually want to change agricultural workplaces. But at the root of the cost problem are the humans that are involved, right? It's the folks that we have, like Lilian's team, that go out and do this amazing work, but they cost money and they drive the price up. So if we're going to open up the breadth of farms that have access to just different tools and that can help them build their capacity and put them on a continuous improvement cycle, it's got to be tech-based. So what we're looking at now, and we've done some investments in, and it's probably about to roll out in Q2, is this idea of using self-assessment questionnaires, right? So here's the minute you hear the self part of that is the problematic part, right? Like anybody can assess whatever they want. And what you get is you get the right answer instead of the accurate answer. So we build our SAQs, our self-assessment questionnaires, a lot differently. We use appreciative inquiry methodologies. We give people progress over time as their metric to strive for rather than a particular score. So it's like, hey, as long as you're engaging, we're good. And whatever they answer in those SAQs, we give them immediate feedback. We're like, cool, there's where you're at. Maybe you have child labor. Wow, that's terrible, right? So we can scold them, but instead we're like, good, all right, you engaged, you're being honest. Here's some directional guidance that you can use to then figure out how to, make sure there's no children in your workforce. So we're trying to build an SAQ that isn't scoldy or compliance-based, but really tries to drive continuous improvement. And that's what's measured. But we still need a validation cover on top of that. And the classic response has been, send an auditor. Well, auditors cost more than trainers. Like, an audit is an expensive being. And it's not feasible. Driscoll's has 1,400 different suppliers. Driscoll's doesn't grow a single strawberry. Largest berry company on the globe, by far. They don't grow a single strawberry. They have 1,400 other folks around the world that are doing. You can't put an auditor that's going to do anything that's interesting on 1,400 sites. And if you manage to do, what they're going to tell you is compliant or not compliant. They're not going to come and say, let's meet you where you're at and let's help you get better, right? And that's our theory of change is that's what we need to be doing. We want to take a hard line and say anybody below this line shouldn't be in the industry. We've just wiped out every one of the suppliers of fresh fruits and vegetables. Because I can pretty much guarantee that anybody that employs more than 50 farm workers has forced labor on their farm. They probably don't know it, but it still exists. So we're looking at a model to answer that. This is a long way around back to that. To answer that, we're looking at the technology solution where we have the self-assessment questionnaire that's very different. It's just a different experience, but it's validated, in fact, by the workers themselves. So then we hit the workers up on their phone and we say, well, we know what management thinks is going on. Let's check are the workers experiencing the same workplace as what the management is self-assessing as? And when there's a delta, that's when it gets interesting. And then we can figure out what the programming needs to be to say, management workers are working in different places. Physically, it's the same place, but it's a very different experience. How do we first bring that together? How do we make sure that the management really understands the workers' experience and is making their policies? And then once we've evened that out, how do we then raise the bar? So we can do that with very few humans. And that's the way we think we can start to get to, the ambition that we have and the design decisions we're making right now is every single fresh produce supplier on the globe.
Super interesting. So you touched on this a little bit, but looking at the other end of the supply chain, you know, the Costcos of the world, what incentive do they have to even change the way they're doing things and bring you guys on? Like, what is motivating, and how have you seen that shift over the years?
All right, Lilian, you can be the bright light here, but let me be the cloud first. They have very little incentive. This system is working fine for them, you know, particularly post-COVID. They're good, right? They're, you know, the things that they would love to eliminate because of the direct financial consequences are food safety outbreaks. Like foodborne illness costs them a lot of money. So they would love to see less of those. And I'm talking about the industry as a whole. There are organizations within the industry that bring us in and engage with us heavily because both for very smart, very forward-looking business reasons. You know, I'll give you a quick example. Costco knows exactly, that is a cute kid that just walked by, Christopher.
Thank you.
Costco knows how many pounds of strawberries they will need in 2026. And when they look at the supply chain, they're like, the supply chain doesn't exist that can get us those strawberries. So they're looking for supply chain solutions that build resiliency into it. And they've had sort of the foresight to say it all begins with farm workers, right? As soon as, you know, right back to what Lilian did with us in the start, you take the farm workers out of that equation and there is no system. So they're able to do it both from just really forward-thinking business planning and plus just an organization culture that says kind of organization they want to be and that they want to, you know, run is not one that is profiting off of, you know, a labor force that is largely under forced labor conditions, for instance. So there's a bit of the ethical, there's a bit of the business and stuff with some of the individuals. But what we're constantly fighting is there is a lack of a very clear market signal from all of the major retailers that says this matters. They would just, they almost say it and they say things that sound like it and they do that. But if they just started making their business decisions based on who is involved in a credible continuous improvement cycle, EFI would go up 10x within a month, you know, but we can't get that unequivocal signal yet from that part of the industry.
Well, I'll just add, I'm not going to be the bright light. I'll just add that from my perspective, the large retailers are, you know, that they hold huge weight. They are the heavy hitters in this industry. They kind of call the shots and they make demands on their suppliers. They make many demands on their suppliers without paying for those demands. Yeah. So they're reaping the benefits of, you know, all of her certifications and, you know, hoops that suppliers jump through to reduce risk, you know, labor risk, food safety risk, pesticide risk, you know, all of that in the supply chain without really paying for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There and the anomalies again, like the leading lights in the industry is, so after Lilian's team trains this leadership team to help the farm, they then are they're the primary mechanism for bringing the farm into conformance with their 335 indicators. So those are social indicators, food safety, and pest management. once they go through a third-party audit and they're able to show a third party that they are in conformance with that, then they're certified. Once they're certified, they use our label. And for every pound of fruit or vegetables that goes to market with a label, is the buyer pays a premium on that. And then 83% of that premium goes back to the compensation of the farm workers. It's actually a line item on their pay stub that says it's the EFI bonus. And you do have organizations, you do have buyers like Costco that have put over $12 million back directly onto farm workers' pay stubs and stuff. And then you've got a whole bunch of, and then you have almost the rest of the industry who doesn't think that they should have to pay for the value that's being produced by these farm workers being engaged in problem solving and making these workplaces safer and more ethical and more dignified.
So
Are you
that's been,
pitching? Are you pitching retailers on like how do you like did Costco just come up to you? I'm just curious of like how that comes around.
Yeah, we're talking to retailers all the time. I spent 3 hours today talking to Walmart, right? And to be fair, Walmart has heavily funded EFI as has Costco and stuff. And but yeah, it comes back to system in the room, right? If we try and do anything without the retailers, as Lilian was saying, they control the economics. They're price makers. They're and the growers are price takers. And so we can't do anything that's going to actually have scalable impact without them. So we're constantly in contact with them. We're talking right now. We have ongoing projects with Starbucks, Kroger, McDonald's, Costco, Walmart, Whole Foods, Compass Foods. I think that's, which represents like globally, represents a ridiculous percentage of how the food travels to consumers. But yeah, we're pitching them all the time. Costco was a little bit different. Costco was part of the, bar napkin that was like, hey, can we do this thing where everybody's interests get served instead of part of the value chain doing something to the other part of the value chain? Can we do a system in the room and coming together? So they had a lot of foresight early and were very involved. And the rest of the folks, it's just taken, 1,000 meetings to really sort of make the case and get them involved and get them to play along at different levels.
right. And I would just say, like, from a systems change perspective, a lot of what happens depends on relationships, personal relationships, right? Because we think of Costco or Walmart or any, big corporation as just this monolithic entity sometimes, but it's not. You have to find the right person in the right department who's going to talk to you, who's going to move things forward. And that can take a long time.
Yeah. I'm going to belabor that because I think you nailed it. Like, if we can sort of, as a alumni and say, like, guys, you got to go out there and like fix the world because it's a mess. If I could say one thing, it's like systems change is ultimately about human relationships, and everything that EFI has accomplished has come down to very specific relationships and the way that we have chosen to manage them and stuff. And so even though the whole term of systems change is just big beyond belief, it has always pivoted on just like a bunch of humans being good to each other and listening to each other and being resolved to work together to solve things. It's that fickle.
Yeah, change happens in the in-between spaces and fractal ways. Saw a question from Claire, and I know you touched on a little bit the components of your certification, but what quickly are some differentiators and how do you see that playing within the larger system of other certifications?
The leadership team, like it is, I'm the certification guy, right? I was the third employee or fourth employee of EFI, built the certification system. That's not the interesting work. The verification side of our work is not where change happens. The change happens when Lilian's team goes on and is in front of these humans. And we've got people that have never attended a professional meeting indoors in their entire careers. And by the time these folks have been through with them, they're presenting to the CEO about how to solve a problem that the CEO's management team has never been able to solve. Like, it is amazing what the transformation that happens. And so I just, right there, that's our biggest differentiator, like to fundamentally change how workers are viewed and how they feel, and that we can leverage their expertise. I just, as unbiased as I'm not, I think we just do that better than anybody else. And I think that's what makes for persistent change. And Lilian, you fight me on that, but
no, I'm not going to fight you on that. When it works well, it is really, yes, the transformation that can take place in over, a week or two is palpable and very inspiring. But the how you see how relationships change on the team and people start to get to know each other and recognize each other as, as real human beings who have different skills and talents and personalities. But, that's the best case, right? And of course, again, talking about systems, right? Like, it works, it doesn't always work in an ideal way if there isn't proper support from management, right? If the company is just doing this because Costco told them they have to get certified in order to sell produce to them. I mean, the growers, do engage in this certification program for all kinds of different reasons. Some of them really do care about workforce development. Some of them are, just looking after their bottom line and may not fully engage. So we've had all different kinds of experiences, but definitely, what really sets EFI apart is that that team, that worker manager team that is responsible for promoting communication and collaboration across the company.
Awesome.
And so,
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to open it up for questions. We only have a few more minutes. But, Mary and Chris.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead. Sorry. I think you had your hand up before me.
No worries. I had a quick question related to your global reach. I was trying to frantically Google to see if I could find the answer, but I didn't find it clearly. So I was curious, clearly there's enough work in the US to keep you busy for a lifetime, but do you have a global reach as well? And if not, what's the potential for that?
Yeah, so we're in the Americas. So produce in this, produce that you eat travels north and south. Very little of it crosses an ocean. Europe it does, but here it's north and south. So we've got certified operations in Canada, US, Mexico, Guatemala, and Peru currently, and we're just trying to do that vertical, and so we need to get Chile needs to come on board with us some more. Most of our farms are actually in Mexico because the export market there is massive and growing. And but yeah, our ambition is not to be global. It's to really look to really just try and concentrate on the Americas.
Yeah, my question was, and there appeared to be some frustration the way the system is working, and that primarily was that you can only work with the bigger farmers or the bigger producers who can afford to pay what it costs to bring these training programs in. And so have you guys looked at, I mean, I looked on the board there's some big heavy hitters between Costco, between Rockefellers, and you're talking to Walmart. is there ways, and you've got grant writers as well, to work through some sort of philanthropic way that these other producers can be subsidized based on a rolling scale of what they produce?
Yeah, I love that model. We've never been able to successfully sell it. What we get instead from, say, the Walmart Foundation, let's say, is no, we'll fund the tech system. So they're the ones that want to fund. Let's do this SAQs with these phone-based surveys. That's how we'll reach it. We haven't ever successfully sold like there's a barrier to entry here. All we got to do is smooth that out, and we can get more people in. It's just not been an attractive, or the way we've at least presented it hasn't been attractive to philanthropy dollars.
So some gap in funding there that we're seeing. Well, excellent. I know we're at time. I wanted to just open it up if there's any final burning questions, and then Kenton or Lilian, if you have any questions for the group. I know, Kenton, you wanted to hear from PGS Wisdom, so I'll let you leave it at that.
Yeah, this is totally flipped, so I don't want to get us off track, but Chris, if you're in Taipei, then Spring Scream is happening in Kending in a couple of weeks, and it's the best music festival I've ever been to in the world, and you should take your family.
I will check it out, and I know we traded emails before. I will follow up with you. Hopefully, you recognize my name from.
That's right. We have. Okay, something was happening for me. I couldn't remember what it was, but yeah. But yeah, we're happy to take your questions. We're happy to sold that we're full of shit, that what we're doing isn't the right way to go, and there's a better way to do it. We're really open to anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just push back and say, for me, something that comes to mind is like time urgency around climate change. And I think we need it from all angles and at every level, which you're hoping to do. But, is pest management enough when we're losing topsoil and, just emitting tons of carbon from agriculture? I guess that question could be asked with every solution. Is it enough? Is it fast enough? But that would be my pushback.
Good. And the answer is no, it's not enough. It's not enough, and it's not quick enough. Now, that said, Lilian, do you want to sort of talk a little bit about the HRTP program? Because we see it as a real blind spot that Lilian's involved in trying to address, and it still won't be enough.
Sure. Yeah. No. So I'm managing a project now. We got funding from the state of California through this program that's run by the California Workforce Development Board, but this round was funded by the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund in California that comes from the Cap and Trade program. So it has these dual goals of workforce development and greenhouse gas reduction. So we came up with this pilot project to work with 3 of our certified growers to develop waste reduction, waste management programs in a way that engages and increases the skills of the workforce. So it's just a very, very tiny little effort to reduce the amount of waste going to landfill in these 3, from these 3 sites. But so no, it's just a tiny drop in the bucket. But yet it's been very rewarding to be able to do something concrete, and to see how excited everyone, managers and workers get about being able to do something.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. There's a direct line from my experience at Presidio to my current job at EFI. Like, this all started between year 1 and year 2 for me. And how it started was actually formed a sustainable ag consulting company with other students, and we turned that into a pretty successful practice. And that was great. We did some good work, and I'm proud of it, and that sort of thing. But what we never did in trying to find like some of the big solutions to topsoil, water, whatever, human migration caused by climate change, all that stuff, is we never once thought to ask workers. We never thought to tap into the expertise of workers. And so that's what we're experimenting with the project Lilian's talking about, is like, man, none of the rest of us have been successful at solving this stuff. Maybe we should like get the workers involved and actually sort of see how they can sort of add to the conversation, and maybe, just maybe, we can actually act in a way that's fast enough and significant enough.
Love it. Yeah.
So, can I just ask, so Kenton, when you said you got together with some people and you started a sustainable farming consultancy, what does that actually mean? And that question isn't, I'm not putting you on the spot, it's more, the word consultancy is thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
So what exactly did you do?
And sustainable consulting, I mean, that's thrown around more lauder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we did, our first client ended up being a major greenhouse operator who has now got their entire supply chain certified. So they traveled with me, but they were just like, we want to be better at sustainability, but we don't even know what it means. So it starts with sort of strategy, leadership team, engagement about like what matters to you. You can't do it all, and some of these things are going to work against each other. Food safety, to be good at food safety is to be bad at biodiversity, right? And these are just some of the dilemmas that this kind of work entails. So what do they want to be good at, and then how do they get good at it, and then how do we create the systems to collect the data to prove that they're getting better at it? So we did everything like from, developing a platform for electrical use at all their sites to be entered so we could at least for the very first time track it. But we also got really engaged on the workforce side around that. We helped them with water recycling. We designed, plant-based filtration systems. So we just sort of like, we're trying to, we were as unsure as they were as to what it meant to be more sustainable, but we just would kind of get our eyes on something and then try and enable that to happen. And whether in some cases it was really technical, like almost building the thing, but in most cases it was political. Most cases it was just getting people to talk to each other, and processes and work processes and operational processes to adapt so that they weren't working against what the company as a whole was trying to do.
That's cool. Yeah, thank you.
So By Nature Sweet Tomatoes, if you ever see them, it is just an amazing company that figured out that by really amplifying their workforce, they would be a better company. And they're doing things that aren't remarkable for agriculture. They're doing things that are remarkable for any large employer that I've ever seen in any economy.
They're on my shopping list now.
There you go.
All right, well, I know we are over time. Thank you so much, Kenton and Lilian, for your time today. I think it's a super interesting discussion. I have notes that I need to come back to and think about some more. So thanks for the thought-provoking conversation. I put both of their emails in the chat if you guys want to stay connected and continue the combo.
Love it.
Yeah,
thanks
great to
so
meet you
much.
all. Great to talk to you. And yeah, feel free to reach out, contact us if you have any more thoughts or questions.
Yeah. And go change the world, because we really, really need it. And Lilian and I are tired. We're very tired.
We're almost retired. No.
Yeah, that's true too. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.